Chapter 9. Gina told Lisa that she was sure the garment factory in the East End, where she worked, needed more girls on the assembly line. Almost all the children of 243 Williston Lane had jobs, and 3/4 of the salaries of each went to the hostel coffers for room and board. The garment factory was in the predominantly Jewish part of the Cockney East End and was a 3-story brick building with folding warehouse doors that read Plotz and Sons in faded letters. Inside, scores of women bent over long rows of sewing machines. The air was stale and filled with dust. Seeing her friend's startled expression, Gina laughed. "You'll get used to it," and brought Lisa over to meet the foreman, Mr. Dimble. She kissed her friend goodbye and went to work. Mr. Dimble motioned for her to follow him into a crowded office. "Ever use a sewing machine before?" he asked quickly. "Yes, my father is a tailor." "Let's get a little taste of it, then," he said, and ushered her back onto the floor. "Mabel, stand up for a second, would you kindly?" A woman in her 40s stood up. Mr. Dimble picked up 2 pieces of navy blue cloth from the floor, placed them together, and handed the fabric to Lisa. "Let's give it a try." Lisa sat confidently at the machine, lifted the presser foot, inserted the 2 pieces of cloth, and pushed the foot pedal. She produced a perfectly straight seam. "You're hired," Mr. Dimble said. "Come back tomorrow morning and we'll set you up." The station at Whitechapel was marked by a large sign, London Underground. She melded into the stream of people passing through the turnstiles, and before she knew it, she was stepping onto a large wooden escalator going down, down, down. She followed her instructions to Williston Green Station, got off without a hitch, and headed up Walm Lane. She saw a woman working in the front garden of a brick house. The middle-aged lady wore a plain black dress. "Good afternoon. I'm a new neighbor from up the block," Lisa said. The woman gave a curt nod, then turned back to her vegetables. Lisa shivered and walked on. The door to the hostel was kept locked from 9 to 4:30, when most of the children were at work. Lisa rang the bell and Mrs. Glazer let her in. "Any luck?" the cook asked in a friendly tone. "Yes, I start tomorrow," Lisa replied, and trying not to sound too desperate, she added, "Is there any lunch left?" "Of course, we'll find you something." Lisa rested on her bed after eating and pictured the living room downstairs and the treasure it held. It was now or never, she thought. She got up, went downstairs, and walked to the piano, gently pulling back the shawl that covered it. Looking around guiltily, she lifted the lid. She sat down and stretched her fingers silently over the keys. It had been so many months since she had played a piano. Slowly, she began the opening theme of the Grieg Piano Concerto in A minor. With a shiver of delight, she attacked the keyboard in earnest. She felt a strange sensation, as if someone else were playing and she were only a spectator. During a soft, lyrical passage, Lisa's reverie was interrupted by footsteps. She turned to see Paul trying to shut the front door quietly so that she wouldn't be disturbed. "Please don't stop. It sounds so lovely," he said, smiling. Lisa played on as one by one the children arrived home. Without saying a word, they gathered in the living room, on the stairs, anywhere they could hear. Edith slithered to the sideboard and settled in for the concert. Somewhere into the third thunderous movement, Mrs. Cohen came through the door, carrying a box of groceries. She stopped and stared. Lisa saw her and immediately stopped playing. "Listen to Lisa," Edith said proudly to Mrs. Cohen. Mrs. Cohen responded with a slight nod and continued on toward the back of the house. "Oh, play something else, please," asked Gunther, coming over to stand by her side. Thrilled by the attention, Lisa launched into her favorite, Clair de Lune, just as Gina came in the door, followed closely by Aaron. When Gina saw her friend at the piano, surrounded by all the boys, she couldn't believe her eyes. "Gina, come listen," Gunther said. In spite of her immediate jealousy, Gina came over and stood transfixed by the music. "You sound just like Myra Hess," Aaron said reverently. "You've heard about Myra Hess?" Lisa was surprised this handsome boy would know anything about a famous pianist. "Maybe I'll get tickets next time she plays," he replied. Lisa continued playing the Debussy. The room grew hushed, everyone transfixed by the beauty of the music. Lisa was the star of dinner. She hardly got to touch her food. After the meal, Mrs. Cohen said in her formal voice, "Lisa, would you please follow me to my room?" Everyone looked up in surprise. Gina looked at Lisa with an expression that said she feared the worst. Lisa followed the large woman to her room in trepidation. "I see you've studied the piano," Mrs. Cohen said, closing the door behind her. "Yes, ma'am," Lisa answered. "And would you like to practice while you are here?" Lisa didn't know if this was a trick question or what kind of answer was expected. She'd decided to speak from her heart. "I would very much like to, if you—" "My son plays the piano," Mrs. Cohen said, interrupting. Lisa hadn't known there was a son. She didn't have the nerve to ask where he was, fearing he was trapped somewhere by the Nazi nightmare. "He is in London in a special school, but he'll be coming here soon," Mrs. Cohen explained. "You may practice for an hour when you come home from work. Then you must let the others use the living room for their purposes. If you like, you may play popular songs for us on Sunday." "Thank you, ma'am. Please close the door as you leave," Mrs. Cohen said, and Lisa let herself out.